Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health podcast. And today we are bringing on our good friends, Darrell and Katie Greenwood from Livin The Dream Farm. And when we first came out here on Vancouver Island a few years back, I think you guys,
2020.
yeah, in 2020, you guys were actually, I remember we were driving to Shirley because we heard of this really great place to go and have breakfast. And as we were heading out there, then we kind of
To
learned
Shirley
about,
Delicious?
yeah, to
Yeah, yeah.
Shirley Delicious. And then we kind of found out about your farm as we kind of went down a little farther.
No, we actually met with their cousin. It was a family member
At
at
Shirley
Shirley
Delicious. That's
Delicious.
right.
Yeah.
So we actually saw your cousin at Shirley Delicious, and they were talking about the produce.
They were one of the only ones
That's right.
not respecting social distancing or wearing masks. So
It's
they were
probably
like,
why we connected so
totally.
quickly. So,
And as Jay and I were having this conversation as we were eating our breakfast, we were nonchalantly not eavesdropping intentionally, but they were right there next to us, and we realized, oh my gosh, these are like our kind of people. And then little by little we're like, do you guys notice it too? Yeah, like, and little by little we started talking to one another, and he said, hey, did you guys know that we have family here at Livin The Dream? And that's how it came to be.
that's right. And I loved it because I remember the first time we actually came into your farm. I think we crossed the sign that says, watch out, free range chickens, free range dogs, and free range children. And I know that kind of made us laugh. We thought this is going to be a really good connection. So,
And you guys had the prayer flag by the water, and there was a bench right there, and I thought, oh, this is a sweet place. Yeah.
but anyways, guys, welcome to the show. So just to give the listeners a little bit more background, Darrell and Katie Greenwood are Vancouver Island local farmers. They live, play, and work at their multi-generational family farm called Livin The Dream. The farm is situated on a 10-acre plot of forested land in a small community called Shirley. Nestled in the forest sits its 1/2 acre market garden where their families work full time to bring the best, most nourishing, high vibe produce to the surrounding communities. And we're super happy to have them here. And I just wanted to have Darrell and Katie on because I mean they've made some really big changes in how they were living to what they're doing now. And this is something I'm finding across the board. A lot of different people are making big changes up in what felt right for them and what now feels right for them. And how do you navigate those changes? How do we simplify our lives? How do we follow our heart's compass a little bit more directly? And so we thought we'd have you guys on and have this really awesome, candid conversation. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, you guys. I didn't know about that little story of how you found out about us, so that was so beautiful to hear. And yeah, we have family out here and awesome community, and we're so blessed to live out here. It's just a little town, but the support is massive, so that's really great.
Well, out here, I feel like you guys are kind of like a bit of a hub out here because you guys are, I mean, anybody that's had your produce and the stuff that
Mm.
you guys sell from the farm, it's totally next level. And after coming and visiting you guys, we get a really good understanding as to why it's so next level and the kind of care that you guys put into it. But maybe we can start off. I'd love to hear just sort of your story. I mean, you guys were all in Vancouver on the mainland and then had your own lives going and doing your own stuff and doing well, and then decided to make this big change and come out here and start this farm. I mean, I'd love to hear just how you guys even arrived from there to putting this dream in place.
Yeah. Would you like me to do the honors? Yeah. So Darrell and I owned a personal training facility in Richmond, and it was going very well. Lifestyle coaching, sports nutrition, just pure goodness. But it's expensive out there. And so he was working a lot. And I was at home with 3 kids. And we weren't seeing a lot of dad, but he needed to work morning to night to, pay our 2 cars, our nice house, our lease on our gym, our dream life. But it wasn't a dream without him. So, we're like, let's get out of this rat race. I don't care if we have to live in a tent. Let's just get out of here and be together, right? And so we told his parents, and they're like, oh no, you're not going anywhere without us, kind of thing. And his brother was like, well, I have a dream. that maybe we can all incorporate together, where we all live together, farm together, and grow organic, nourishing foods. And we were like, yeah, seemed like a really good idea at the time. And so, I mean, a lot of between over these now. Place that was the zoning was right, that we could grow successfully. But it ended up Darrell's parents sold their dream home in Steveston and were able to take all that money and buy us this beautiful property. So it really is thanks to them that we're able to be here. And yeah, we all moved from Richmond and we have 3 homes on this 10-acre plot that we bought. And well, they bought, I should say. And we all live here now and we have 0 worries. You know, we all homeschool our children. And so we're all with each other 24/7, which to us is such a blessing and a gift, and to our kids. And yeah, we are able, you know, before when we were trainers, we would go to the store and buy organic dandelions, organic kale, but we were always like, where is it from? Like, who picked this? What are the intentions? When was it picked? There was all these questions, the soil, the water, like what's in our food that we're eating? And so when we were able to start this farm, that really meant a lot for us, that we could grow our own food and feed our children and our own bodies and our community that we know is like the best of our very best ability to grow. And that's about it. Here we are 7 years later, right? Did I miss anything?
I don't think
That's pretty good, right? Yeah. Yeah, hang on.
So your kids, the age range, just so that the audience has a bit of an awareness, how old is the youngest and how old is the oldest?
We have Bo, who is 8. We have Cruz, who's 12, and Michaela, who's 15. And then our brother and sister-in-law have a 10-year-old Kai and like 5-month-old. Her name's Gia. And so that's all of them. The wild children. Feral, yes.
Feral.
One of our friends at Surely Delicious is like, what kind of traps do you set up to catch children like this? They're all wild-haired and, you know, bright-eyed.
Well, that's the thing, bright-eyed too, you know. I actually think, you know, in Chinese medicine, we talk about, like, that's actually what we call like the Shen. That's the spirit that comes out, and you'll see it. It's even a part of a diagnostic when we're looking at people, and you can see it. There's that luster in the eyes, and you'll see it with kids a lot of times. I mean, all kids come in with that, but you definitely see it transition over time. I mean, I've seen it lots with kids where it transitions. It's always really beautiful when you see it in kids that are getting older, and it's still just as vibrant as it was, and even more rare to see it in adults where you still see the luster in the eye. And I think that comes, in many ways, I think it comes back to being really connected to nature and a lot of simplifying, you know. It's like you mentioned dream life, right? It's like, gosh, like how many of us are reevaluating what a dream life actually means? And sometimes it varies, you know, depending on age and where we are and what we're wanting at certain points in time. But I know for us, a few years back, it was a really big shift in sort of that concept of what do we actually really want. And I mean, I think for us, probably changing when we had children, I know that was a big shift, like just priority changes. I'm sure probably for you too, Darrell, when you've got these kids and then you're kind of like, geez, I'm like out of the house, you know, 10 hours a day or something like this. And, you know, you know where your heart's wanting you to get pulled, but you're trying to figure out how to support and do all of these different things. For you guys, when did you guys know it was time to make that change? You know, a lot of times it's sort of like we feel like there's something that needs to change, but either we're not doing it yet or we're kind of still sitting on the fence a little bit. How did you guys know when it was time to actually make that leap?
In Richmond, it was interesting because there was a lot of changes in real estate. Like the cost of living really went from a place where it made sense to all of a sudden, it was almost like the universe was like, all right, you guys are being called towards something new. The hardest part of this journey was like crossing that bridge of the unknown. You know who you are, what you're good at, what your professional titles are. And then you know that there's a crossing that needs to be made. And when that happened, it seemed like the universe was kind of guiding us towards something new, but there was the fear of letting go of what we had known. And the hardest part was crossing that bridge as it emerged and taking action. And that's, a lot of people question us about that. So what was that bridge like crossing? And that's where most people get stuck. So yeah, we're so grateful that this opportunity presented itself and that we had the courage to just say, like, we can do this.
Because we had never farmed before. You know, we were trainers. We knew about food, but we didn't know about soil, how to grow. None of us really did. I mean, Wes and Marta had done a bit of research on permaculture and small scale farming. They made their backyard enrichment into this oasis of food. So they were practicing, but we had no idea if these seeds were going to germinate. If, like, we didn't know. We're just learning through mistake.
Yeah,
so you don't have to be, you don't have to be a title, a farmer, to be a farmer. You know what I mean? You can learn, and nature will teach you if you listen and and you respect her. And yeah, it's been a journey. We have lost many crops, but then we try again and again. Oh, this worked and this didn't. And it really brought us together as a family to put our heads together and say, well, I saw this video or I saw this YouTube. So we don't try and bounce ideas off each other. And it was exciting because no one was the rule maker or knew exactly what they were doing. We were just messing up as we went. So
we failed happily many times.
We failed happily, and we still do. We still do all the time. And, or we'll just have all of a sudden like 40,000 rabbits on our farm out of nowhere. And we're like, oh, where'd you come from? Okay, we can share, but so you're always tackling something. But you work through it, right? And
well, that's a real shocker to hear from me, Katie, because seeing you guys, I mean, and I'm gonna post a few pictures for those of you who are watching the video of this. Please take a look on YouTube, because I want you to see the vibrancy and the beauty of the produce that Katie, Darrell, and family produce, because there's definitely a difference. I know that at the beginning of the season last spring, my mom was, we share a house with my parents as well. And my mom was buying salad, and dinner time we would gather up, the kids would set the table, and we would enjoy Persian meals typically, and salad on the side. And my mom was buying the salad from Costco until your salad was ready to purchase. And I started to say to my mom, let's not purchase that anymore, because my friend's produce is ready, and we're able to purchase salad from them, the greens from them. And the difference in taste, the difference in appearance, the difference in how it tasted in your mouth, as like the even the hydration, like the moisture and the water, like I can't even describe how
you actually
delicious.
Feel happier.
Yeah, it actually looks happy.
It
like
does. I was going to say your
happy.
produce always looks happy, and vibrant. So,
and when we buy plants to actually replant on our property, transplant on our property, even the soil that we get from you guys, when we're digging up your plant to put into our ground, the soil is so rich and black, and like everything about what you guys do is next level. And the way you talk about plants, when we attended your workshop last year on wild foraging with our kids, it's so inspirational and beautiful. And it's something that I felt like you've been doing this for a lifetime. I had no idea that you weren't doing this prior to, this new life of yours. But it comes so naturally to you, and even the way you communicate and you listen to and you collaborate with the plants, and yeah, it's a beauty to witness.
Well, thank you for saying that. And yeah, it's nature is just it never ceases to completely blow my mind. You know, it's always just giving, and we try to give and receive with it. So, when I do these courses, it's really important for me to teach everybody that to not overtake, to ask before you take, and to tell the plant your intentions before you take. And this is really important. And I think we're all remembering to do this, but it has been lost. There's all of this food that grows around us wildly, and it's free, and it's medicinal, and we live here. It's growing for our bodies, our DNA. We are more attuned to being able to eat these foods than ordering supplements from Africa, or you know what I mean. It works. They're local. They work with us better. So let's get to know those. And yes, like growing your own food is great too, but there's so much more. And so with the wild foraging course that we offer, that's what I intend to kind of teach. And your girls, they came too, and they were so wonderful. You know,
They still remember. They still remember most
all
of the
live.
stuff. It just
Yeah.
like sucks right in there.
And the
Sophie
kids too.
particularly. Yeah.
They know. They just know.
Yeah. I
And our
love
kids,
it.
they're eating spruce tips and that lemon vitamin C taste. They just love it. And it comes out just in the spring when our immune systems are kind of teetering from, nature offers what we need at the perfect times. And it's really beautiful. So
I still think it's fascinating. When we were here, and then I've been making tinctures with herbs that we've been foraging and whatnot too. And even I remember when Taya's mom was talking, she was having like trouble sleeping and some anxiousness and some stuff like that was going on. And as I'm looking around, and then all of a sudden you notice that it's like our front yard was covered in California poppies, covered in them. So we're everywhere. I'm like, this is totally an example of like nature kind of shows up when you need it if you train your eyes to actually start to see it. And California poppy can be really good as a for sleep and for restlessness and for anxiousness and all these types of things. So we harvested a bunch of it and started making tinctures with it for her. But it's like,
And my mom said, "Oh, it's alcohol. I drink the whole thing."
yeah,
No, mom. No, no,
yeah,
no.
just little
It's
bits,
medicine.
little bits. But I think it's really funny, and it's a part of this sort of sacredness that comes back into appreciating nature when you just start to look for it. And I mean, I see this particularly with the kids when they're out there because they're just so excited to see everything, and they talk about it, and you can see they're so into it. And to me, it's like when people get a chance to start to get back more into that, however they want to, and they start to kind of see the reverence in the nature. I mean, a lot of stuff shifts inside people.
right, because you can look out and see a patch of horsetail and it's just taking over, and you're like, oh. But when you can stop and say, why is this growing here? And what are its benefits? And then maybe you'll see, maybe you're losing your hair, or you're not, you're brittle. And then you can see how much silica is in the horsetail. And it really is a blessing. So noticing, yeah, just noticing and what's around you,
Hmm.
taking it in, because there's always a gift. You just have to notice.
I remember even during the foraging workshop that we did with you, Katie, last spring, you were, as you were walking us around, you said, this particular family member is experiencing, this serious illness, and lo and behold, the plants that are growing around his home are this particular plant, which is actually absolutely conducive to his health and well-being. And I think that is such a, when you just get out in nature and start to observe, I don't even think that we need to practice, being kind. We need to be good to each other, or we need to recognize nature's sacredness. I don't think we need to do any of that. I think by us just showing up and seeing what's around us and opening up and feeling all the feels, we are naturally going to be touched and transformed by nature. And that level of sacredness is part and parcel of what nature is. And we are also a part of that nature. So when we are actually in nature, connected to nature, we are coming home to a place that feels familiar, that feels loving, that feels held. And all these sort of features or characteristics that we've, all these spiritual vessels, I feel like, have always taught us to strive for. There's no striving involved. It's just there. It's just a return home to our own nature and to our own innate. And I feel like this is the big gift of nature that's around us, and spending time to reconnect with the land and getting to know the plants and spending time outdoors and, enjoying
bare
the sun.
feet,
What's
know?
that?
Your
Bare
bare
feet.
feet.
Yeah. And dirty hands and dirty feet,
Yeah, this
It's more of a realigning than anything else. After teaching health and fitness for many years and growing food, the greatest thing that which seems obvious that we discovered, is there's nothing more profound on your health than just picking food fresh from the ground, intentionally working with plants and putting it into your body. Like, that seems simple and obvious, but that has such a powerful effect.
he'll go out and pick like fresh beets and celery and come in, and this basket he's holding is like vibrating, with life. And that life, these foods are alive and they're just picked. I had somebody at a market say to me once, well, why would I spend $3 on a bunch of parsley with you and I can get it at the superstore on sale for $1.50? And I found that to be a really interesting question, and I was grateful I had the chance that they gave me to answer that, because it's alive and it's not traveled from California or somewhere else, who knows where, or what it went through to stay green, who knows. This is alive, vibrating, cellularly hydrating, organic from the earth, and picked with you in mind. When we're harvesting our produce, we are so excited, right? I mean, when you are out watering beet by beet with a little watering can that has comfrey in it, it's the most beautiful thing. Like, you'll be out there for hours singing, whistling, and just making sure they're all okay. If there's sees a little slug on it, you'll pick it up and gently put it away. And my sister-in-law, she even has dreams like, oh, I know what's wrong with this plant. I came to me in a dream. And, Marta, and she'll try it, whatever it might be. And she's right. And so just being open, and we all are on this farm in our own way to receiving information about the garden, the land, what it needs. And we each have our own way.
We're kind of like caretakers.
Yeah.
You work with a lot of plants. It's like, wow, like, they don't speak the same language, but there is a connection, and it's a subtle connection. And like, when you really tap into that, you can see that, like, they're nurturing our health and giving themselves to us, and in return, we're caretaking the land and providing a safe environment where they can thrive. And that connection as a farmer, it's like, as we tap more deeply into that, it just feels like the energy of the food grows more magical, And I think every farmer's doing that in their own way somehow.
I think it's really beautiful. We were talking to Ralph Sudeth a little while ago, who's done a lot of research in water, and
He's our favorite mad scientist.
yeah,
at the
we
moment.
just adore him. But he was gone for a long time. He was in the down in the Amazon for quite a while and lived there for a long time. And he was talking about water and talking about structuring of water and the the difference between sort of immature water and and sort of live mature water that's gone through all the nooks and crannies and been exposed to nature sounds and has lived a little longer. And he said one of the indigenous that he knew out there that was one of his friends was talking about how you can actually put your hand in the stream when you're connected to it, and it will inform you. The information you'll actually hear, and you'll be able to know what's going on. Similar to how we've kind of heard, with trees and the interconnection that goes on with the root system and the mycelia network and all this thing where this whole massive grid of interconnection and communication. And I do feel like the more that we just connect wholeheartedly into that, I do think we are privy to that type of information. So like when your sister-in-law gets these dreams, I totally think that's all possible. Just like this indigenous elder could put his hand in the water and know what was going on in different places. It's a different level of communication that's almost so magical sounding for where we currently live. But I think more and more people are sort of curious about that and wanting to connect to these different layers of information that I think is all around us.
Right. I mean, to simply ask, you will receive. And it might not be in our English language or the way we're conditioned to hear. But when we ask, our plants are similar to humans too. If there's an infestation of whatever or something's going wrong, it's not the plant, there's a root problem, something's not right. And so if you spray it and they'll go away and whatever, you're not going to fix anything, right? They're just going to come back like any disease that we would have. You've got to fix the root. Where is this coming from? So when we ask our guides or whatnot for help and we're open to receive that, it might come in any kind of form. And it's the same with our plants. When we can ask the plant deities or whatever, you can just ask, and what's the harm? You might receive some information or you might not. So it might sound crazy, and that's okay. But it works for us. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we're like, well, I really just don't know. But I'm sure the answer is right in front of me, growing in a yarrow plant that just wants to be made into compost tea or something, so there's always an answer for more of a root problem. So
it might not come in those moments, but in a couple of months, you learn and you can apply it and then share it with the community so that other people can overcome maybe similar problems. And for those that are like looking to connect to plants and nature more deeply, I mean, one simple tool is just become the creek. Like if you lay in the water, then you'll notice that the water removes everything that isn't available or that we want to remove from the present moment. So, it just removes, and it's all there is this flow left. It's like there's us, there's like we transcend our fears, and there's that connection. That's all. It's right there in front of us.
Yeah, we're not so separate, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Not rather than thinking about what do I need to do to connect to nature, like Teo was saying, is it's already there. And what can we do to go deeper into it? That's sometimes as simple as laying barefoot on the ground with our hands down, listening to the ocean, or even submerging ourselves in the water so that we understand like we're part of this force. And it doesn't go anywhere. It's just for some reason we create these illusions that make us feel like we're not part of it.
It's a really interesting statement, because I remember back when I was in school for naturopathic medicine, and I remember being invited, our college was invited to a medical school conference. And so we were the naturopathic school that was there with all of the other medical school students, and we were all kind of doing these courses together and bonding and whatnot. And I remember at this one big conference, and there was this really well-known psychiatrist that was there talking to the whole auditorium of all of the students. And the whole conversation, the whole topic was about how you set up a compassionate, caring environment in your clinic. And it was like, you arrange your table this way and you set the chairs up in this direction. You make sure that your body language is a certain way. It was all very like mechanical, like step by step how to do it. And I remember like our whole group kind of like just kind of looking at each other. And my one friend, she raises her hand up, and this is in a group of probably about 500 students, all of the medical students, with probably about 20 of us naturopathic students. And she stands up and he calls on her and she's like, um, I see you're putting all of this stuff like step by step on how to create the environment to create a caring environment. Why don't you just care? Why, like why don't we just all care for our patient? And he just went, "You're from the naturopathic college, aren't you?" And he goes, "You're absolutely right." He goes, "But the thing is, sometimes we've gotten so trained out of it because we've been so focused on other stuff that we almost need these stepping points to try to get back in connected to it until it then organically actually happens." And I feel like that's kind of what we've done with nature in a lot of ways. We're sort of here like, oh, if we do this, then we can connect to it. And so there's probably some value in those steps to try to eventually get there. But I feel like where we all are now, like Tia was saying, is like we just need to kind of have these organic experiences with it, just immerse ourselves in it. And then we know you have a very different sensation when you actually have this full body experience of it rather than kind of intellectually trying to figure out how to connect to it.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to surrender. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. And then it comes and you're like, oh, perfect. Yeah, it can be a little messy. I don't know. There's no plan. There is no steps really besides getting the seeds into the ground. But yeah, to be honest, Wes and Marta, they really do do a great job of leading our farm into a more structured, without them, there has to be structure as well, because we wouldn't have the next succession ready in time. We wouldn't have, there has to be a timing as well. If we missed seeding for a week, then we won't have any salad in a month for the community.
A plan,
so
sure.
a plan is important, and you can't just fumble your way through it. So we are quite organized. So I'm very grateful that Wes and Marta have a really good plan, and they're always the critical thinkers. Like, well, if that doesn't work, then what's next? And we need more ideas. So we always have a lot of backup plans, especially when you're dealing with CSAs. People have prepaid for a produce box. You can't just not have anything ready. So there has to be a few options in case one of the crops gets eaten overnight. We got to fall back on something else. So you just don't know. We've got many deer and bear and raccoons and bunnies. So it's very unpredictable.
It's a good thing you guys got two massive dogs to keep everybody else in check, all the other animals in check.
Yeah, the Great Pyrenees are amazing. They keep our beehives safe. They keep our chickens safe. Yeah, they really do. They live in the chicken coops with the chickens. So yeah, they're amazing. And then we have a few pit bulls that kind of do the perimeter and keep like the cougars, bears at bay almost. So yeah, it's like a full team, not just a humans. Like the dogs, they all communicate to each other. I think there's 6 of them in total. And the teamwork is amazing. Just watching it all happen. And yeah, like I did mention, we are in this forest. We're surrounded by beautiful rainforest, so there's a lot of nature. I know you guys have a lot of deer, right? That you're kind of you have to fence them off, that they can really jump. Without the dogs, then they would jump, but they don't. So
one thing I'm curious about is you guys made a big transition where you kind of went from kind of on your own, tight-knit family, but on your own, to now all living together. And this is something that I also think is transitioning for different families as well. And people are kind of, in North America, we very much go out and, get your own home and your own car and your own sort of thing. And everybody's kind of got their own little space. And to live together is not so common in North America. I mean, especially not living in the same house like we do, but you guys have multiple families all within the same, right next door to each other. What was that transition like, with being sort of a little more separate from family to kind of being more together with family? And what did you find as far as the benefits, and what were some of the challenges you guys had to work with?
There's 3 generations of us, like with our kids, my parents, and like me and my brother, and our cousins as well, that are involved here and there and helping out. So one of the main benefits of coming together like this would have to do with like the ancestral healing aspects. of like bringing all these different personalities together and having to learn to mesh together and build a team. And there's different ideas, you know, there's different personalities, there's things that don't necessarily mix. But one thing that my mom often brings up is this is kind of like one big marriage. So when something's not going right, you got to give the space and learn the communication tools in order to learn the lessons involved without like creating too much havoc. So I feel like, yeah, there's definitely challenges where all of a sudden like your own unique space is no longer there, and your ability to do things creatively or as freely as you like, or maybe the ideas that me or Katie might have might not be honored as part of the team, but just learning to move the ego out of the way and look for ways where we could all contribute to the greater service of the planet, of the community, of, you know, of being food producers and standing behind what health and fitness and things like that, looking for gifts rather than dwelling on the too much on the imbalances or the sores that kind of come up. But she's like living here with my family, so the challenges, I mean, I respect her because it's challenging enough for, you know, when it's your own mom and dad, but for her, she could give you some.
We really do all get along really well. You know, all three families are fairly laid back, are fairly easygoing, and we all have the same vision to grow food. We all have the same vision to grow it as organically as possible. And when I mean as possible, I mean intentionally and without even the use of machines. You know, we really want to get down to that, keeping the microorganisms alive and how much better can we do. So we're all on the same page of wanting to create something magical. So it's not really hard for us to get along because we're on the same page. But if you're three families looking to move to an area and you have three different views of life, three different places you want to be, you're not on the same page, that would be really difficult. But, you know, it's been 7 years, so it's given us all a lot of chances to grow. From any kind of triggers, we can go in and say, well, why did that trigger me? And then we can sort that out and then come out better. So, and, you know, and teach that to our kids, you know, and we just all continue to talk, and communication is everything. If there's no communication, how do you move forward? So that would be my advice. If you are to want to move into a group setting, you're all married really in a type of way. So you have to make it work. There's no grudges. It can't happen. So get on the same page, get your stuff in order. What are your goals? Where do you want to go with this? What's your passion? What can you not live without? What if this happened? Like, put it all on the table and, you know, go from there.
Well, and I like that no grudges too. Like that's a big one, because this is sort of I think another theme as well, but it's a how often does stuff come up that we just kind of hold down a little bit and don't really work with, or because it's easier to just step away from somebody if we're not there. I mean, when you got a whole family in close proximity, you kind of have to work stuff out at some point, because otherwise it just gets to be unbearable. So in some ways, I definitely think in many ways that you're kind of pushed to have to deal with your own shit a lot faster than you would if you were able to kind of just escape from it.
Yeah, you learn how to take responsibility for your own thoughts, feelings, and actions. And it's almost like you said, in a fast forward way. So we've been really connected deeply to Ho'oponopono, and that makes a lot of sense in living in an environment like this, where when things really happen that are upsetting or triggering, just remove the outside world, remove the outside person, and what's left, there's our imbalanced thoughts and feelings to that situation. And sitting deeper with that and making space so that the solutions kind of appear in the calmness and the stillness of what we create in our own time and space. And then in that stillness, there's a resolution that's at a higher level of consciousness. that can be brought to the team instead of the just reacting right off the
There have been reactions too.
Sure.
Yeah,
No,
there's
we're not
a lot,
all like,
no, but it leads
but
more
there
to
has
that.
been like,
Yeah.
yeah, then it's like, okay, sorry about that. Let's go back. But
Let's go
over
back to the
time,
old
what I'm
now.
saying is we've gotten better. Yeah.
I don't think you're really a family living real if you don't have those moments. And sometimes those are the moments that comes up and that then causes you to actually go into deeper reflection around stuff. So I don't
Really
really
does.
think any of it's
A
totally,
week or a month or, but yeah,
yeah,
the reflections need to happen. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. And I'm honored to be on this land and property with these people. So yeah, it's a good thing. We are living the dream.
How did you find with your kids?
Mhm.
I'm wondering about that because I think in your About Us on your site too, you said we wanted our kids to grow up wild, surrounded by nature, endlessly engaged in divine play. And I mean, I think you guys have definitely done that. What have you kind of found? Because this is also a really interesting one. I think a lot of parents are really trying to figure out how do we really support our children the best way that we can? And you're going to see all sorts of different ways on doing that. What's your compass sort of go to as far as knowing as a parent that you are setting up the best environment you can for your kids? Because what you guys, how yours looks is probably very different than another family that thinks there's what they think their best ideas for their kids, which might be. But as an individual, from a parent perspective, how do you guys sort of discern when you feel like you're doing what is best for your kids? What's the feedback you look for?
When they go to sleep at night, like right away. They're just like out cold. They're running, they're busy,
Rosy
they're
cheeks,
rosy
bright
cheeks. Yeah,
eyes,
they're just
chasing birds, holding snakes. Like it, when we made this move, that was the one thing we reminded each other of. Like, this chance is worth taking because of that image of that, inner child's running freely in nature, connecting so deeply to the forces that are all around us. That made that big jump. It was worth it then.
he'll place one of our crews will place his hand on a tree or a tree that's fallen and just think to himself, I could weave a basket with this. Or he's just drawn to these mushrooms growing, or they play these games outside. And I don't even know how they come up with it, all the boys, and they're hiding rocks, and each rock is a crystal worth a certain amount of salal leaves to pay. And they just go on for hours. And I have nothing to do with this, but they're learning and they're growing and they're happy and they're so curious about the world. And that's where we teach them what they want to learn, how it brings them joy. They still do, schoolwork here, being homeschooled, where they learn to read and write and whatnot, but they want to, like, oh, I want to be able to read what this says. Or our daughter, who's now 15, she's just such a great human because she's been able to really connect with who she is, not what everyone else does. And so I'm really noticing that, seeing her as an adult now, what she's grown into, and she follows her dream. So I love that. I think that they've been given the choice.
Mhm. I think that's so beautiful. I think that's really key. When we initially moved over here, so our kids, their ages are between youngest is 6, 7, and 19 now. And I remember at the time when we moved to the island and we met up with you guys, I asked you, what are you guys doing with your kids? Like, how are you educating them? And you asked me, do you know about unschooling? And I didn't know so much at the time. And I guess I didn't really know even too much more up until we did an interview with a gentleman named Patrick, and then we started to look at that term specifically and what that entails. But what was really interesting is that with our kids, because their age range and the time that they were supposed to go to any conventional school would have been close to COVID, when COVID hit, and so that wasn't an option. for us, because we didn't want any sort of restrictions on them. But what was interesting is that they do, when they're ready to do something, or they want to do something, or they're at a developmental stage where they want to read, they'll tell you. And that was such a novel thing for me to realize. I'm like, oh my gosh, like she's actually telling me, Mom, can you help me read? Mom, I want to read. Like, they'll tell you. And that's when you know they're ready, because they've arrived at a point where they understand the relevance of something. And that's the readiness that they have is going to be like sponge for them, and how quickly then they absorb any information. And we've talked about this briefly before, but my son didn't read his first book until 16, and it wasn't even that he read the book incomplete, just enough to be able to pass the course that he needed to. And I was so worried, because I thought, oh my God, he's gonna fail at life and like end up in prison. It's like your first child, you have all these worst case scenarios going on in your head. And
I know, yeah.
and, and
Yeah.
it's so cool, because for them to just be free, and even this socializing piece, and maybe you can relate, but I know for us, it's like, I think socialization is overrated. Like, I feel like allow your kids to know who they are before they are bombarded with other people's opinions and judgments and programming that goes on. Because a lot of people are exposed to television and media, and that plays a part in their psyche and who they are, especially if they're under the age of 5. And for us as parents to really place a high emphasis on socialization, we're actually not giving our own child the opportunity to get to know themselves, and we aren't able to get to know who they are. And like, I feel like that's such a gem that we miss out on if we are just so fixated on wanting to connect kids with other kids with.
Well, and that was even a part too around socialization that came up in our interview with Patrick Ferenga and with the unschooling. He said, socialization doesn't mean it has to be with your kids with the same age. Socialization means interacting with all sorts of different people that have even like similar interests and things that you're curious about, right? So you can have young kids interacting with grandparents or older people or whatever it might be, but it's all more around what they're interested in, for the most part. I know when we decided to make some of the changes that we did, one of our major priorities was just that we really wanted our kids to just know themselves more than anything and have a really good sense of that before they get mixed into a whole bombardment of other stuff. I mean, eventually in life you kind of explore more and more, but I feel like sometimes if it happens really too early, before you really even know who you are, you get so washed out, and all of a sudden you're interacting a part of somebody else or something you saw on TV or whatever it might be, and it's not even you, and it's like, how do you get them to be really grounded in themselves?
Yeah, having the space to allow them to root deeply so that they know who they are. If they're so young, their roots kind of just don't get to go deep. They're not really sure. Oh, maybe I could go this way or this way. So yeah, rooting deeply makes them confident in who they are as a person, their individual being. I think we just did a craft fair. Our daughter does art, and she was selling her cards, and we had 2 separate strangers come up to us and ask us if she was homeschooled, because she looked at them right in the eyes, was able to have like a conversation with an adult, no problem, very comfortable. And I'm not saying that other children that are schooled don't do that, but it's the comfort in, like you said, not just being with people her age all the time and looking down, or she's able to interact with any age, little, young, old, it doesn't matter. To her, it's all the same. So that was I was kind of almost put back that someone would even ask, I'm like, how did you know? How would you know that? Oh, we can tell. So Yeah, just that grounded, that confidence of who they are is a beautiful thing to witness. Yeah, especially with the fresh air around as well. I feel like there's more with the kids with that redness in their cheeks. When we were in the city all the time, it would always be scheduled walks because it was you can't just go run around, you know. There's neighbors all right next to you. There's hey, we got to go for a scheduled walk. You got to stay close. There's no wildness. So that was the difference I noticed with our kids in Richmond versus here was there's just scheduled gymnastics, scheduled park walks, kind of everyone's on a leash, you know, whereas here it's like you let the leash go and this is see you later.
Seeing our daughter Kayla like step into her and power and share her feelings, and seeing that like as an individual she's recognizing what she's feeling and confident enough to share it. Like as parents, like you know that you're following your heart and following like a more unique path, and it becomes fulfilling really when things like that happen, where it's like, wow, this is real life valuable stuff, like being able to communicate and difficult feelings and different things and have the confidence to do that, you know. So it's like things like that that make us as parents realize like we're on a good path.
And also learning hard work. You know, they're all in the farm. They're in the rows with us daily, harvesting, helping us clean up. With Marta just having a baby, you know, Auntie Marta, how can we help you? That compassion, that openness to helping her out with the baby and just helping us all out, you know. It's really neat to see them on their own accord want to help and know that their work is valuable and worthy and helpful. You know, they're not just like kids get out of the way or, you know, no, you're a valuable part of our team and we're grateful. And so I do believe being out here too instills like a really good work ethic.
Do all of them have their weekly tasks in the farm season? Like when we're full tilt, like they're cleaning rows, pulling plants, like moving things to the compost, wheelbarrowing, like shoveling. So they're taking part and learning how to be part of a proactive team, which is really kind of they're good skills to have.
Yeah.
And contributing and also learning how to say no if they're not really feeling like taking part, and like their feelings are honored. So there's all these opportunities as parents that come up when you're around your kids all the time.
Lots of opportunities for parents. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, it's got to get done. I still have to do it.
I guess you're making dinner tonight then. Yeah, it's fun. We're all a huge unit here, which is really neat to, well, actually, now that when you ask me these questions and I'm able to step back, I don't often really think about it, but when we're asked, it's like, oh yeah, you know, this is a really great team. You know, we really don't do so bad considering we had no idea what we were doing. You know.
When we have volunteers here, that's the thing that people always say to me is like, it's amazing to just witness like how well everybody intermeshes and works together. So over the years, like we formed an incredible there's incredible teamwork here where, you know, we all come together and know what needs to get done. And week in and week out, we all make it happen. And even though some weeks, like in the middle of the season, we're just basically like, oh man.
Yeah, we get pretty tired.
It's like, how are we gonna go to markets this weekend? You know,
Yeah.
like it really sometimes is like that. But you know, you bring it all together and all of us contribute in our own unique ways. And there's all these special gifts that are unique and, you know, that all contribute towards the team. And by the end of the year, it's like sometimes we just need to look at everything we've accomplished and I feel as a team and really focus on the immensity of the whole season, because it's easy when you get into a farm mode to just want to let's just keep going. Right, there's that mentality, let's just follow this momentum and just see what else it could create. So in hindsight, like Katie said, when you have a chance to kind of like look at the bigger picture, it's important to pat like the whole team and really focus on what we've accomplished over these 7 years and each season, and, you know, be grateful for each other.
And our community. I mean, you meeting you guys, we know our community like their family, like, and that's no joke, you know. We are so grateful that people trust us to nourish their families, and they choose us, and they come to the farm, and they, you know, get to learn and see, and they come to the farmers markets every weekend. They place their orders. We couldn't do this without them. We just couldn't. So, I mean, we live in a really awesome place.
This is magical.
It's a magic souk, Shirley, Jordan River, you know, these surrounding communities, they're just so supportive for our farm, for all the farms.
It's
You
like
know,
a big
yeah.
family. Like getting to know you guys, like, you know, we clicked like right off the get-go, right in the middle of like when we first met, there was like COVID had happened. And we kind of found this little community where it was like, you know, we had our own unique thoughts and feelings about what was going on, and we kind of found each other and formed really tight bonds. And then we all introduce each other to the new people that are like kind of like fit into that, you know, kind of spectrum of energy. And we all group together and like support each other's growth and the different projects and areas we're getting into with work. And just this, it's like the family's growing.
Guys, what have been some of the biggest lessons, as we're coming to a close here in a bit, but what have been some of the biggest lessons you guys have learned from the farm?
To just speak your truth. You know, I'm even still learning to just be open and honest and truthful all the time to everyone that lives here, and then having just discussions. So I think those were kind of hurdles that we've overcome, where we would just not say anything, or, you know, just keep the peace, make it, you know, but really coming out and learning to just keep a higher ground and speaking the truth.
For me, I'd say in these last 7 years, the one aspect I'm very grateful for is like brain coherence, is being able to like be in a really an environment where there's a lot of things going on, but learning tools and how to like center the self, and, you know, bring the brain into a place of like away from the fight or flight system, and just like kind of tapping in and getting it more connected to the heart. And not just doing that in meditation, but really working on trying to bring that into the community or into farm environments or into disputes, is like, you know, really, it's an ongoing process that, but I'm grateful for being directed and led into that, the depth of that work, the moment to moment.
Yeah. Just gonna continue. We're gonna have a good rest here over the next few months, and then yeah, we start up again in January and February doing seeds. We have an open nursery where we sell medicinal plants, and Wes does grafting for trees, so he creates all our own, digs up all our own rootstock and grafts, you know, every kind of apple you can imagine, pear, plum. So we'll have a big nursery sale in the spring, like February, March. So that's kind of what we're gearing towards next. And that's what we'll be working on this November. The rest of November and December is just propagating. Yeah. So still lots of work out there.
I love it. Guys, in conclusion, we usually ask our guests at the end for this specific series, which is around creating New Earth, a collaborative mission. Any final words for the audience? I know, again, in the on your website in the about, I think one of the final things you guys say is the greatest hope for our farm is to share the highest vibrational food with the world, while at the same time inspiring others to live in a different way. In that comment around living in a different way, what would you like to inspire others with?
Don't be afraid to try new things. You can grow your own food with your intentions and your love anywhere. You can grow it in a window. You can grow it in a container on your deck. You can get rid of your flower garden, let's reconnect to the land, because it's to do with your health. To get those fingers in every day, to connect with a plant, to say hi to it, to water it. Let's change the way that we think that it's all external. We go to the grocery store, which is fine. We do that too. But to also have a sense of reconnecting in some way to the earth. And it doesn't have to be growing your own food, but it can be changing in a way where you're honoring a container of time to go out in the forest, to say hi, to go barefoot, to grow your own food, somehow remembering our roots, and grounding yourself. And this is not just to do with, doing it for the sake of doing it. It's to do with your health, to grounding, to vibration, to frequency in your whole body and your whole health. And it's so important. And I really do pray that we can all tap into that a little bit more and a little bit more.
I guess in conclusion, just the importance of following dreams into action. And, I think everybody has a dream, and it remains a dream if it's just a thought or a vision, but it's actually stepping into action. And it can just be one small thing a day, and just every little step leads to something bigger. And then before you know it, like, you've created something that, like, at one time was just part of the imagination. So just believing in that imagination and putting it into action so that we can bring beautiful things to life.
Joy. Yeah.
Beautiful. So saying yes as opposed to coming up with excuses, just say yes, everyday little yeses. And it could start off with just small yeses of inclinations that come up. And like you were saying, Darrell, just start with those until you start to kind of develop the muscle to trust yourself more and trust your own inner knowing more. And then start to say yes to those bigger things that come up, a big yes.
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 Guys, where can people learn more about the work that you guys are doing? We'll put those links in the show notes.
We have a website, which is living with no G, just livinthedreamfarm.net. Or you can find us under Facebook or Instagram, and the tag is @Greenwood Farmers.
Perfect.
Awesome.
We'll get all those links from you, and we'll have it at the bottom of this video as well to share with everyone.
Guys, thank you so much. That was really fun and great to connect with you guys again for a little while.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.